If you remember, I discussed that there are 37 registers are there. And out of 37, how many visible at a time? 16 is visible at a time, right? So in a different mode, different registers are visible at a time. Okay. So we discussed this architecture yesterday, and this is actually ARM core, and you need to interface many other things with this core in order to make the ARM chip. That means you have to add timers, GPIO, interrupts, serial ports, everything you have to interface, connect with this ARM core to make the ARM chip. So this we have already discussed yesterday, so I will not discuss it again now. We also discussed the barrel shifter, hardware multiplier, and this programming model of ARM processor. We have also seen that R14, R15 and R13, these three registers are having special roles. R14 is a link register, R15 is program counter, R13 is a stack pointer. Then current program status register and saved program status register. Why you require two separate current program status register and saved program status register? It was not there in AVR microcontroller. In AVR only there was the one status register, but here two different is given. Why it is like that? Anyone? Can you guess any reason for that? What should be the reason for that? Amit Pandey, 1002 number. (1025) Dhruv Gangajadia. Can you unmute yourself and tell me? I am not getting your voice. That means 1002 Amit Pandey and Dhruv Gangajadia both are absent in the class. They are virtually present but not attending the class. Just they have started the meeting and then they are away from it. So I am assuming that they are absent. Okay, please. Bolo. You don't know. Okay, so at least tell me don't know, otherwise I will mark your absent. If you will not give any answer, then I will think that you are not present there. So just I was going to mark your absent, but thank you. You told me that. Okay, you don't know. Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Dhruv. Okay, Dhruv. My question was that what is the need of current program status register and saved program status register both? Okay, that means whenever you are the microcontroller will change the mode. So whenever it will execute in a normal mode, there will be some status of all the flags, and whenever it will switch to some other mode, like for example fast interrupt mode, then this current status of all the flags will be saved in a SPSR. So CPSR will be saved in a SPSR, so that that CPSR you can also use in a FIQ mode. So that is the basic purpose. But it was not there in AVR microcontroller, right? So in AVR microcontroller also interrupts were there. But in AVR what was happening, that before using the subroutines or interrupts, you were declaring the stack memory. So your current status register, before switching to the subroutine, it was saved in a stack memory, and whenever you are returning back from the subroutine, it will be popped from the stack memory. So to save that time, because in a ARM microcontroller we want to work fast, some of the interrupts which are very crucial, critical, we don't want to waste the time. Immediately we want to execute that. So we don't want to waste the time to save the current program status register in a stack. We don't want to waste the time to save the registers in a stack. So that's why here a fresh copy is given to you in a different mode. So yesterday we were discussing that in whenever you are entering from normal mode to fast interrupt mode, the registers R8 to R14 fresh copy is given to you. So that you don't require any to waste your time to save all these registers in a stack memory. So here a status register also fresh copy will be available to you in a different mode. Maybe it a FIQ mode or a abort mode or IRQ mode or a supervisor mode. So whenever you are changing the mode, you have a fresh copy of status register will be available to you, right? So that's actually the idea here. Okay, so just it's my request that whenever I am calling your name or enrollment number, at least respond. If you don't know, please say don't know. And whenever I am saying guess your answer, that means your answer may be wrong sometimes. No problem, you can give the wrong answers, right? No, you are free to give the wrong answers, right? But at least you have to answer my question. Otherwise, I will mark your absent there, right? Okay, so now let's continue our discussion. So on a exception, what is happening actually? On exception, that means exception is nothing but it's also known as sometimes a mode. Another name of this exception, whenever you are basically switching from normal mode to exception mode, basically we are changing the mode. That can be FIQ, IRQ, abort, or any other mode. But whenever this mode switching will happen, what will the controller will do? The PC plus 4 will be saved to the link register. Now why PC plus 4? Because your PC is actually, after execution of every instruction, your PC will be incremented by 4, because every instruction, as we discussed last time, that every instruction is 32-bit long. 32-bit long means it is a 4 byte. And you know, PC initially, let's say it is at 0000. After execution of one instruction, it will be at PC plus 4 at 0004, right? So every time PC will be incremented by 4, then for next instruction it will be 00008, then after it will be 000C. So at every execution of one instruction, PC will be incremented by 4. So PC plus 4 is a location of a next instruction, and whenever you are switching to the mode, whenever we are we want to come back from the mode to the normal mode, then at that time we require to preserve the value of location of next instruction, and location of next instruction is a PC plus 4. So that's why PC plus 4 is saved in a link register. Right? So at the end of subroutine, we can use the instruction like this. You can use instruction like this: move R15 R14. So R14, that is a link register, will be transferred to the PC. Okay, R14 is a link register and R15 is a program counter. So value of link register will be given to the program counter. at the end of subroutine, so that you will be able to come back to the instruction which you are executing in a main program. So whenever you are entering from normal mode to exception mode, at that time the first job is that PC plus 4 will be stored in a link register. CPSR will be saved into SPSR underscore mode. Underscore mode means if your FIQ mode occurs, then SPSR underscore FIQ. So in this register the CPSR will be saved. Then PC will be loaded with an interrupt vector address. So whatever the exception is occurring, it is having a fixed address given to that, and that address will be loaded into the PC. If you remember, in AVR microcontroller, the address of external interrupt 0 was 0002, address of external interrupt 1 was 0004, address of external interrupt 2 was 0006. So all these are known as a interrupt vector addresses, which will be loaded into the program counter. Okay. Then R13 and R14 both will be replaced by R13 underscore mode and R14 underscore mode. Again, depending on mode, this thing will be replaced here. Suppose if it is a FIQ mode, then it will be replaced by R13 and underscore FIQ. If it is IRQ, then R13 underscore IRQ. So R13 and R14 will be replaced by it will be stored in these two values, so that you can use R13 and R14 during the mode execution. In case of a FIQ mode, R7 to R12 is also replaced. So you are getting fresh copy of all these registers. Now let's look at CPSR and SPSR format. The format of both is same, because both is just a copy of the SPSR is saved into CPSR is saved into SPSR. So format remains same, because one is copy of other. Okay. So in this case we have a different bits available. As you can see here, these are the M0, M1, M2, M3, M4. These are the four mode bits are there. Right? This T is a stat bit, that means thumb mode or a normal mode, right? So this T is actually a if T is equal to 1, that means it is a thumb mode, and if it is equal to 0, then it is a normal mode. Then there is a flag called F and I. F is FIQ disable and I is a IRQ disable. Right? So if is F is equal to 1 here, then FIQ will be disabled. Right? FIQ will never occur. Similarly, if this I is equal to 1, then IRQ will be disabled. Right? So these are the flags given to disable particular mode. Fast interrupt mode as well as simple interrupt request mode. Then on this side, on the left side, you can see that there are flags called negative flag, zero flag, carry flag, overflow flag. These flags are very much similar, which you have already studied in AVR microcontroller. Right? The purpose is same: zero flag, carry flag, negative flag. So basically this CPSR is used to store the condition code. So after execution of arithmetic and logical instructions, whatever the condition, based on that the flag will change. If the result of operation is 0, then 0 flag will set. If carry has occurred, then carry flag will set. If due to certain arithmetic and logical operations overflow occurs, then overflow flag will set. Then in ARM actually one more mode is there, that is called 16-bit mode, thumb mode, because sometimes you don't require 32-bit operations. You are satisfied with the 16-bit operations, then the 16-bit operation, this thumb mode is available to you. That is called thumb stat. and here this T bit is for that purpose actually. So whenever you are making this T equal to 1, that means you are entering from normal mode to thumb mode. So in a thumb mode, few registers are available. In a thumb mode, you don't have these R8 to R12. These registers are not available to you. Only registers from R0 to R7 are available to you. So because it is dedicated for small applications, you don't require more number of registers. So R0 to R7 is available to you. As well as a stack memory, link register, program counter, CPSR, SPSR, all these are available to you. But thumb state is always useful for a 16-bit operation, right? It's not useful for a 32-bit operation. And this is actually programming model for a thumb mode architecture. So as we have seen that it has registers from R0 to R7 available, as well as stack pointer, link register and program counter is available. Whenever you are entering from user mode to FIQ mode, R0 to R7 will be same. Only fresh copy of SP, LR and SP and LR both will be given to you, right? Similarly in supervisor mode, so everywhere you can see that SP and LR fresh copy will be given to you, other register will not be given to you. So in a thumb mode, if you are going to utilize R0 to R7 in FIQ mode, it is programmer's duty to save all these registers R0 to R7 which was there in a normal mode in a stack memory. So that is operation you have to do. So everywhere it's programmer responsibility, whatever the registers which are used in normal mode, and if the same register if you want to use in FIQ or a supervisor or abort mode, then it's your responsibility to save all these registers into a stack memory, and then after whenever you are coming back from the FIQ to normal mode, it's your responsibility to pop up that register from the stack memory, right? So you have to use some instructions which are already available in ARM, which is known as stack operations. So stack operations you have to use because fresh copy of registers are not available with you in a thumb mode. Now let's look at the features of ARM7 TDMI architecture. It is using 0.25 micrometer or less die size and high performance CMOS technology. Low die size facilitates low voltage operation and it can cause the low power dissipation. So as you will be studying in VLSI that basically high performance CMOS is having a low die size, and whenever low die size is there, it will facilitate the low voltage operation and it will cause low power dissipation. So it gives high performance of 300 million instructions per second at a die size of 0.13 micrometer. So even if further you reduce the die size, the performance will improve, power dissipation will also reduce. But in that case you have to take a lot of care during the physical design that you will study in VLSI technology. Fully static operation, since it is a MOSFET, clock can be reduced to 0. So even if you reduce your clock to 0, then also no problem because it is a fully static operation. So sometimes some portion you don't require to use, then you can make clock, you can remove clock from those portions to reduce the power consumptions. So that's why in a ARM its provision is there. The portion which you are using, in that portion only you will continue the clock signal. Other portions you can disable the clock signal. Large register set we have 37 registers, but at a time all are not visible. It is a 3-stage pipeline. It has a 2:32 addresses. So if you calculate 2:32, it's basically 4 gigabyte linear address space is available. 32 or 16-bit RISC architecture, that is ARM version 4 thumb state. So in this case it is mentioned that this T is there. If you are using thumb mode, then then 16 bit, and if you are using normal mode, then 32 bit. So this architecture, which is a 32 bit ARM instruction set as well as 16 bit thumb instruction set available. So two different instruction set is available. If you are happy with a 16 bit operation, you can use this thumb instruction subset as which is given as extension. Right. 32 bit array, LU and high performance multiplier is available in the ARM processor. The instruction processes data with a different data types such as 8 bit, 16 bit or a 32 bit. That means it's not like that it is a 32 bit microcontroller, so you cannot process 8 bit or 16 bit. You can also process 8 bit and 16 bit. There are two type of interrupt request are there. One is FIQ, fast interrupt request, and one is IRQ. It's a normal interrupt request, simple interrupt request. FIQ is having a highest priority because the name suggests it is a fast, so naturally it has a highest priority. And we have seen that in a FIQ mode, more number of registers are given to you. Fresh copy of the registers is given to you, right, compared to IRQ. Because in FIQ we don't want to waste the time to save the registers into the stack memory. That's why more registers are given to you. So you can freely use it during the FIQ operation. Co-processor interface is available. You can easily interface co-processors. Co-processors normally it's a mathematics operations, so it's normally a math co-processor you can attach with the ARM processor, so that all that task, complex mathematical tasks, computational tasks can be given to the math co-processor. Then extensive debug facilities like ICE, that is in-circuit emulator, real-time debug and on-chip JTAG interface is given in a ARM processor. When a friend was asking that you require to 89AS52, so you have to remove it from the microcontroller board and then you have to insert that into a programmer, then you have to program it there, and then again you have to insert into the PCB. So that type of facility is not known as a in-circuit, right, programming. So in a ARM processor, you don't require to remove ARM chip from the PCB. It is, in fact, it is a ball soldered, so difficult to remove. So it is within a circuit. You can still program it. You can still debug it, and there is a on-chip JTAG interface is available. So you will be able to visualize the content of all the registers on your PC or a laptop screen. So it's my request that if you are going for a new projects, mini projects or micro projects, don't use 89AS52 or 51 kind of a microcontroller. Use advanced microcontroller like AVR or ARM microcontroller. Don't prepare any mini project with help of a 89AS51 or 8085, that kind of a microcontrollers. Now let's look at a pipeline organization. ARM processor is having a pipeline organization, and basically pipeline means it will give us overlapped execution of computation. So overlapping of execution is possible. Superscalar processor is normally has a pipeline for a processing, and more than one instruction set is at fetching, decoding and executing stage. So let me explain this pipeline with a very simple example. Let me open this writing pad. I will explain you this pipeline with a very some basic example I will try to give you. So let's take one example. Let's see that you have prepared one machine, and you are going to utilize. Let's say we want to do three things. We want to wash the cloth. Then after washing, you want to dry the cloth. And after drying the cloth, you want to iron the cloth. So actually we can call it as a W, D and I operation, right? So we have some machine which performs all these tasks, W, D and I, And consider that for one cloth, it can complete these 3 tasks in a T time. Right? Then suppose if you have a n number of cloths, then total required time will be naturally very simple, n into t. Right? So total time is n into t. So let's say t is a 5 minute, and if you have 100 clothes, then 100 into 5, so 500 minutes will be there, right? So let's say you have prepared one machine like that. Of course, it's not possible to wash, dry and iron one cloth in a 5 minute, but just for example I am taking it. Otherwise normally it requires 1 hour time. Okay. So this is actually without pipelining. Now consider that you are using pipeline and you have splitted this machine into 3 stages. One is a W, another one is a dry D, and third one is iron. And consider that all these 3 are taking time T by 3, T by 3 and T by 3. Now you have splitted the machine. So what will happen that let me explain it here using different colors. Okay. So let's consider that the cycle is something like this. Cycle, let's say C1, C2, C3, C4, C5, C6, C7, C8, C9, and I will stop it here because I don't have much space here. Okay, and let's consider that this actually the cycles you can consider in our example as a cloth 1, cloth 2, cloth 3, like that. And considering that, initially we have a 3 thing, W, then W means wash, D means dry, and I means iron. Now consider that this actually first C1 is for washing. Right? So initially you wash this C1. What will happen next time in a next cycle? This C1 will go for a drying, right? And in third cycle it will go for a iron. So this C1 will be here, right? Now whenever C1 is being dried, at that time we can wash the C2, right? So we can wash the C2. Then this C2, whenever the C1 is being dried, what we can do? The C2 will be here. Then we can give this C2 for a iron. And whenever C2 is being dried, at that time we can wash C3, because we have splitted our machine into 3 parts. So we can do this process in parallel. Right. So and whenever this C3 is being ironed, at that time C2, C4 you can keep it here. You can keep C4 here, C5 here, right, and so on. So now all these 3 are in a pipeline. You can see all these 3 things are in a pipeline. That means at every cycle we will be able to complete 3 cloths. So within a 1 T you are able to complete 3 cloths. So if you do not split this into 3 stages, in a 1 T state, 1 T time period, you will be able to wash only 1 cloth. But now you will be able to wash, dry and iron 3 cloths. So ultimately in this case it is a N into T. But if you are using a pipeline, what will happen? You are getting more efficiency. More efficiency mathematically you can represent in this case 2 plus N into T by 3. Why 2 plus 2? Because initially only this C1 you will be able to process. Then in this cycle only C1 and C2 you will be able to process. But then after third cycle, now it is your pipeline is full, and now you are able to complete. In every cycle you are able to process the 3 cloths. So that advantage you are getting after 2 cycles. So that's why this plus 2. But if this n is very large, let's say you are having 1,000 cloths, right? Then it will be 1002 divided by 3. So compared to 1000, this 2 is negligible, right? So we can say that it will be nt by 3. If n is very large, then we can say the time required is nt by 3. So that means your performance is improved 3 times. If you have splitted your machine into 3 stages, your performance is improved 3 times. If you had splitted into 4, your performance will be improved by 4 times. And if you are using n stage pipeline, if you split your machine into n stage, then your performance will be improved n times. So that is actually a concept of a pipeline. So with help of a pipeline, your execution becomes much faster because you can do the parallel jobs. Is it clear or any doubt in this? Pipeline concept is clear. I tried to explain with a simple example here. So in this case, let's say it requires 1000 cloths are there, then in this case it requires 5000 minutes. But in this case it requires approximately 5000 by 3 minutes. So your total time will reduce. So I am not getting feedback, so I assume that you understood it. Okay. The performance is n times in n stage pipeline. As we have seen in the example, the performance improvement will be quite large. Nominal increase in cost of implementation, because we are implementing pipelines, so naturally you require more hardware, so there will be slight increase in cost of implementation. The pipeline organizations, as we have seen in example also, that it increases the speed. Most of the instructions executed in a single cycle. We are having a different versions like 3-stage pipeline, ARM7 TDMI, and earlier we are using the 3-stage pipeline. 5-stage pipeline, that is Armstrong, ARM9 TDMI are using 5-stage pipeline. 6-stage pipeline, ARM10 TDMI architecture is using the 6-stage pipeline. So you can see that in a 6-stage pipeline the performance will be 6 times, 5-stage pipeline the performance will be 5 times, in a 3-stage pipeline the performance will be 3 times than the normal. So again I am trying to execute with help of a fetch, decode and execute cycle. 3-stage pipeline is having a fetch, decode and execute. So whenever the first instruction is fetched, at that time we can't do anything else. But whenever the first one is decoded, at that time second will be fetched. And whenever the first one is executed, at that time second will be decoded and third instruction will be fetched. So from here we are getting the advantage. Right? Here we are getting the advantage. So that's why it's known as a 3-cycle latency. After 3 cycle, at third cycle we are getting the advantage. Okay. Then after we will continue to get the advantage. And one instruction per cycle throughput we will achieve after this. So everywhere after this we will be able to execute 1 instruction per cycle because of this pipeline organization. Is this graphics is clear to you? Okay, my battery is now showing low, so maybe I will continue further 5 more minutes, and then after, but before that let me take your attendance, and then after I will continue. Today number of students are less. Why? What is the reason? Actually only 35 students are there. Anyway, 5-stage pipeline, in that actually it reduces the work per cycle, allows higher clock frequency, and in a 5-stage the number of stages are like this. It has a fetch, decode, execute, buffer data and write back. So these five are arranged in such a way. So in this diagram, we have seen the 3 stage. Now you have to increase 2 more stage here in a 5-stage pipeline, and that 2 more stages are buffer data and write back. It separates the data in instruction memory reduction of CPI. So average number of clock cycles per instruction it will reduce basically, right? Pipeline flushed and refill on a branch causing execution to slow down. Now what will happen? This pipeline is having one problem, right? That if there is a branch instruction, then you have to flush the pipeline, because normally what happens, now I am getting the message battery is low. Okay. So consider that you are executing this instruction, okay, and this after execution you came to know, at the time of decoding you came to know that this is a branch instruction. So next instruction you don't want to execute, but it is already fetched. So it is already fetched in the pipeline, so you have to flush the